Have you ever said something you genuinely believed and watched the other person kind of just not react, not disagree, not argue, just nod and move on, as if your point was background noise? You know the feeling. You had a real opinion, something you actually thought through, and somehow it didn't land. Here's the strange part. The problem usually isn't the idea. It's the wrapping around it. Most of us have a habit we don't notice. Before we share a view, we pre-apologize for it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but... Or, this probably isn't a great point, or, I'm not really sure, just thinking out loud. And then, buried somewhere in all that, there's the actual thought, which is often pretty good. What's happening here is interesting. Those phrases feel like social safety, like you're saying, please don't attack me, I already admitted this might be bad. And in your head, that feels protective. You're already lowering the stakes before anyone can raise them. The problem is, it also lowers the stakes for the listener. They hear the disclaimer before the actual idea, and their brain quietly files your opinion under probably not worth engaging with. Think of it like packaging. If someone hands you a beautifully wrapped box, you expect something worth opening. If they hand you something in a crumpled paper bag while saying it's probably garbage anyway, you believe them. Same object inside, completely different reception. Benjamin Franklin noticed this long before modern psychology caught up. He had a habit early in life of stating his opinions bluntly, even aggressively. People pushed back constantly, not because his ideas were bad, but because his delivery made them feel like they were being told they were wrong. So he changed the packaging. He replaced words like certainly and undoubtedly with phrases like I conceive, I apprehend, or it so appears to me at present. Not because he became less confident, but because he understood something subtle. The goal isn't to signal certainty, it's to make your idea receivable. That shift changed everything. His ideas were accepted more readily, he was argued with less, and his influence in public life grew significantly over time. That distinction matters. There's a real difference between phrases that erase you and phrases that simply open a door. I'm probably wrong, never mind, erases you. I might be missing something, but here's how I see it, opens a door. One collapses before the conversation even starts. The other invites the listener in. Dale Carnegie made a similar observation. He pointed out that the moment you announce you're going to prove someone wrong, you've already lost the room. Not because your argument is bad, but because people's sense of pride activates immediately. When someone feels challenged or attacked, they stop listening and start defending. The content barely matters at that point. The brain is busy protecting territory, not processing ideas. So the instinct a lot of people have to add softeners and pre-apologies actually comes from something reasonable. It's an attempt to avoid triggering that defensiveness. But the execution goes too far. Instead of making your idea easier to receive, it makes it invisible. The idea is still there, buried underneath all that hedging, but the listener has already moved on. Here's where it gets more interesting. There's a middle path that actually works. The phrase, I may be wrong, sounds like self-erasure, but it isn't, if you mean it genuinely and say it cleanly. Carnegie actually describes something close to magic in it. When you lead with real intellectual humility, not performed weakness, the listener relaxes. Their need to defend simply drops. They become curious about your thought instead of braced against it. Try this approach. State the small things you and the other person already agree on first. Get the conversation moving forward together before you introduce the bigger point. It's a natural way to talk, and it happens to be very effective. Once someone has said yes twice, even about minor things, they're in a forward-moving state of mind. They're more open to what comes next. This is what Socrates did, by the way. He almost never stated his conclusion outright. He asked questions that carefully guided the other person toward it, step by step. Not as a manipulation trick, but because he understood that people have more faith in ideas they feel they arrived at themselves than in ideas someone handed to them. The ownership changes how the idea feels. You don't have to run a full philosophical dialogue every time you want to share a view with a coworker, but the principle scales down nicely. Ask a small question before stating your position. Do you think X played a role in this? Gives the other person something to respond to first. It creates a small shared space before your idea enters it. There's also something worth knowing about preemptive self-criticism, which is different from pre-apologizing. If you've made a mistake, or if there's a clear weak spot in your thinking, naming it first actually builds trust. Carnegie gave examples of people who beat their critics to the criticism and ended up turning hostility into cooperation, not because they sounded weak, but because they sounded honest. Owning a flaw before someone else points it out signals confidence, not insecurity. The self-erasing habit tends to show up in lower-stakes situations, like dinner table conversations, quick disagreements at work, casual discussions with friends. And those situations are exactly where it goes most unnoticed. You slowly drift into softening everything sentence by sentence without realizing the whole conversation has become shapeless. Nobody argues with you, nobody really engages with it either. Your opinions all exist in the room, but they don't quite land anywhere. What's interesting is that the fix isn't about becoming louder or more assertive in some forceful way. It's about trusting your packaging. You can be genuinely humble and still be clear. You can acknowledge uncertainty and still have a real point. This is how it looks to me right now, is honest, open, and still has a shape to it. People can respond to that. They can agree, push back, or build on it. That's really all a good conversation needs in the end. Not certainty, just something real enough for the other person to grab onto. If you enjoy understanding how these social dynamics actually work beneath the surface, there's more on this channel. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring.